Welcome to our in-service on developing a behavior support plan, created by Craig Barnes, Nancy Bursey, Crystal Din, Janelle May, and Stephanie Mercer. We'll begin this in-service with what is a behavior support plan? And these are individualized strategies and supports based on each individual child's unique characteristics. They include such things as conditions or antecedent events that trigger the problem behavior, warning signs that the student is experiencing difficulty and the behavior may soon arise, plans for diffusing the situation, positive supports to help the student, what peers need to learn to do to support the student, and other strategies school staff can use to support and encourage the student. The Education Action Plan has led to changes in our education system in Newfoundland and Labrador. The introduction of the responsive teaching and learning approach allows for a tiered focus and provides mechanisms for monitoring and adapting student programming. Social emotional learning is embedded in the curriculum. Under the tiered approach to social emotional learning, 80% of students are successful at the level of universal instruction. 15% will require targeted intervention, while 5% will require intensive interventions. A flowchart is a graphic representation of the RTL model. We will focus on the steps that lead to the creation of a behavioral support plan. When students have a diagnosed exceptionality, an IEP will often require the development of a behavior support plan. Students without a diagnosis yet present challenging behavior will initially receive instruction in the universal instruction tier. Behavior issues will lead to the team providing targeted interventions. When the behavior continues, the child will receive intensive interventions. And if issues persist, the consultation request form is completed, which leads to the referral for comprehensive assessments. So we look at the flowchart. Here's our student. And the first question is, does the student have an exceptionality? Yes, it's a diagnosed exceptionality. So therefore, the program planning team will often develop an alternate course related to social skills or social emotional learning and develop a behavior support plan. Whereas if a student does not have a diagnosis, we'll follow the normal tiered approach. First, there's universal instruction, and if issues or difficulties arise, then the teaching and learning team will develop targeted interventions. And if there's issues persist, then the student will move to intensive interventions. The RTL model has built-in mechanisms that provide for the creation of teams that collaborate to implement interventions and are actively involved in the functional behavioral analysis. Teams ensure that data is collected from a variety of sources and perspectives. An hypothesis about antecedents that trigger behavior, the function of behavior, and how it can be changed or modified is developed, and mechanisms for monitoring are also implemented. And here's Lily. Meet Lily. Lily is a 5-year-old student who identifies as female. She is in Miss Honey's kindergarten class. Lily lives with both her mom and dad. She enjoys playing outside, painting, and swimming lessons. When in school, she enjoys spending time with Miss Honey, Miss June, the grade level IRT teacher, and Mr. Jim, her physical education teacher. Lily has been having difficulty adjusting to kindergarten. Lily has difficulty taking turns. She often becomes aggressive, drops to the ground, throws toys, and/or attacks students in the classroom. Lily's tantrums can last between 10 and 20 minutes and may include prolonged whining, crying, and screaming. These tantrums can sometimes increase to physical aggression, banging self onto an adult, head thrusting, taking objects, or hitting. Lily's language appears to be delayed. She only speaks in 1 to 2 word phrases. She often repeats what others say and echoes phrases. Her classroom teacher has brought this concern up with the service delivery team, and a referral has been forwarded. One of the first steps in Lily's case, in students like Lily, is we need to gather information. So one of the first methods that is used is an informant method, which is an interview. An effective interview can provide information on the behaviors present, setting events, antecedents, consequences, and interventions. It can be used when trying to determine the functional relationship between target behavior and maintaining contingencies. As well, an interview can aid in defining the target behavior. When used properly, an interview can highlight the child's interests, successes, and learning styles, which can be used when developing a behavior support plan. Before ever interviewing a teacher, parent, or guardian, or caregiver, the interview must build a trusting and positive relationship with them. Hadaway suggests that teachers could be concerned that admitting some of their classroom management struggles will reflect poorly on them. Parents and guardians may be reluctant to share or withhold certain information about their child. By establishing a positive relationship, some of these barriers can be broken down. It is critical to continue the collection of data for the development of the behavioral supports plan after interviews have been taken place. Interviews provide unique insights into the individual, but are limited to the interviewee's memory and subject to their personal judgments. The information collected should not stand alone. It needs to be combined with other forms of data, such as direct observations, problem behavior questionnaires, and incident reports. An interview with the teacher. Either an IRT or a school counselor can sit with the teacher to conduct the interview. As teachers spend 5+ hours a day with students, they're able to provide insight into students' behavior within the different settings at school. When determining which teachers to interview, it's important to consider how often the teacher is with the student. The classroom teacher in primary or elementary may be the best choice as they see the student every day, as opposed to the music or physical education teachers, for example, who only see the student a few times a cycle. If the student is in junior high or high school, it may be more appropriate to interview each teacher or school personnel who works with the student. Floyd reports that interviews are limited to the recollections of informants and their personal judgments. When possible, interview multiple teachers, music, gym, IRT. This way, if any personal judgments are present, they will stand out as an outlier. And if a functional behavioral assessment interview with a teacher can provide insight into events, settings, and activities that have an impact on the student's undesired behavior within the school setting. A functional behavioral interview with the parents. Either an IRT or school counselor can sit with the parent, guardian, or caregiver to conduct the interview. The differences between home and school can help further highlight environmental factors that have an impact on the student's behavior. If undesired behavior is present outside the school setting, the functional behavioral assessment interview can provide insight into events, settings, and activities that have an impact on students' behavior. As well, can be used to help shine a light on the student's interests and successes. The information collected can be used when developing intervention plans. If possible, interview multiple sources depending on the amount of time they spend with the child. For example, if a child spends time with a caregiver every day after school, then this person should be able to provide information surrounding the behavior. The student-directed functional interview. Student-directed interviews are conducted by school personnel, such as the IRT or guidance counselor, when appropriate. Meaning a teacher can interview a student, provided that the teacher believes that the student can provide reliable information. Student-directed interviews are performed to gain students' perspective on their own behavior. one provided by the Department of Education in Newfoundland contains 10 questions regarding the student's preferences, likes, dislikes, and generally how to make school more enjoyable for the student. The student's schedule is also discussed with the student to pinpoint when in the schedule the behavior may occur. According to O'Neill, there are 5 sections to the student-directed functional assessment interview: identifying student strengths and skills, defining the problem behavior, completing a student schedule and rating the difficulty of each class, developing a functional hypothesis complete with setting events, antecedents, and consequences, developing a behavior support plan with the student. A problem behavior questionnaire. Teachers can use this questionnaire to determine how antecedents and consequences affect challenging behavior. Kowalski and Matson discussed that there should be caution when interpreting information, as there may be many factors involved in the challenging behavior. They state that if both the antecedent and the consequences serve the same function for the same behavior, the occurrence of the behavior serves that single function. Therefore, the most frequently occurring of those functions for that specific behavior may be hypothesized to maintain the behavior. On the other hand, Kowalski and Matson also state that if both the antecedents and consequences do not correspond during occurrence of a behavior may be maintained by multiple functions or irrelevant correlating antecedents and consequences, maybe coinciding with the behavior. And here's an example of the problem behavior questionnaire. The problem behavior profile is completed after the problem behavior questionnaire. It is usually found at the end of the problem behavior questionnaire. It is an organized table that allows for easy reference and will inform the creation of an hypothesis. It contains 3 categories: peers, adults, and setting events. Under each category, it refers to questions in the problem behavior questionnaire and a rating for each question. Below the table is a section to write an analysis of possible functions of behavior. Other ways of direct data collection would be a functional assessment interview. It is a direct data collection method, an interview to determine the teacher's observations regarding antecedent or the event activity immediately preceding the problem behavior, the observed behavior and the consequence, or the event that immediately follows the response. And these things are all recorded. The time, the setting, and the people involved are determined through this process as well. Another example of a direct data collection is the antecedent behavior consequence, ABC observation form. The antecedent or the event or activity that immediately precedes a problem behavior, the observed behavior, and the consequence are all documented. Other direct data collection tools would be an event recording or a scatter plot observation assessment, class interviews. And here we are with Lily again. The assessment process has yielded insights regarding Lily's behavior. Lily has difficulty with groups. She doesn't like to share classroom items such as crayons and pencils. She butts in line, causing disruptions. She doesn't like to take turns. Each of these are antecedents to verbal and physical aggression. The consequences of most of these behaviors were often appeasement or removal from the situation. Establishing goals. It is important when establishing goals to choose one target behavior to work on at a time. Also, these goals must be what many teachers refer to as SMART goals, meaning the goal must be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Once we have decided which behavior we would like to target, we must state the goal in specific terms, such as Lily will not hit. Next, we must make the goal measurable, such as Lily will not hit during carpet time. By making the goal measurable, we can easily keep track of if Lily is displaying the behavior during this part of her routine. Once she has mastered it at the carpet time, we can move on to other settings or activities. The goal will continue to change as we continue to move to making it into a SMART goal, such as adjusting it to Lily will not hit at carpet time for 4 out of 5 times a day. Next, we will look at long-term goals. These goals take longer to achieve and could take months or even years. In order for our student to be successful with these goals, they must be carefully planned, and we must ensure they are able to dedicate time toward them. When creating long-term goals, it is important to keep goals achievable and relevant. For example, expect our student to complete something 100% of the time may be expecting too much. We must also ensure goals will remain relevant for the student as time passes. Short-term goals. Short-term goals are meant to be more immediate and can be met in the coming days or weeks. Any behaviors that demonstrate a safety concern for the student, classmates, or staff must be addressed first. As there are concerns about Lily's physical aggression, we will address this as some of her short-term goals. We will aim to have Lily be able to complete a 45-minute class without pushing any of her classmates or yelling at them. Lily also struggles socially and has trouble making friends and maintaining peer relationships. To assist Lily socially, we will aim to have her sit with a classmate at recess 4 out of 5 school days a week, and we will work on having her work with a group for 10 minutes. While 10 minutes may seem like a short period of time, for some students, we may even need to start off with a shorter time. If we discover that 10 minutes isn't an achievable goal for Lily at this time, we will lower the time to 5 minutes and continue to build on that. Implementing the behavioral support plan. Within the tiered approach, there's a framework and support for implementation and monitoring of interventions. Team and individual roles are clearly defined. Teachers, IRTs, student assistants, and reading specialists are consistently present in the classroom. One behavior concern for Lily, and will be the target of intervention in the behavior support plan, is her aggressive behavior toward others. When Lily successfully goes an entire class without pushing, hitting, or yelling at another student, the adults will provide positive reinforcement in the form of praise, and the positive event is documented. If Lily begins yelling and becomes aggressive towards another student, the adult will direct and remind Lily to practice breathing exercises. For a count of 6, hold for a count of 2, and then breathe out for a count of 4. And these are some of the strategies that we would implement to help Lily change her behavior, and it's a part of the entire process of developing a behavior support plan. Support for other short-term goals. When Lily is able to sit with another student during recess, the adults will recognize success with attention and praise. When Lily is successful and able to stay working on a group activity for 10 minutes, the adults will recognize her success with praise and attention. The RTL approach is as a built-in framework that will allow teachers to record, monitor, and adjust behavioral support plans that will be helpful in achieving the desired goals and allow the student to ultimately be fully engaged in learning. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave them below. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.